I was getting the hang of that beat.
I was bouncing my head.
All right, welcome everybody. It looks like we've got one watcher right now, so welcome. We've got a really awesome guest today. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and.
Okay. Well, hello. I am Justin. If you listen to Cryptids the Corn podcast, I often go by the great and powerful Mr. E. It's a name I've wanted to use since I was a little kid. So I'm one of the co-hosts of Cryptids the Corn podcast. We talk big, small cryptids. We do paranormal. We do UFOs. We dive into conspiracies every once in a while. My co-host is crazy. I can say that because he's not here. He's supposed to be watching. So we're going to test Jay. But yeah, you can find us anywhere you watch podcasts or listen to podcasts, not watch podcasts. I'm not used to seeing me on video. But yeah.
It is different, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
If anybody feels like asking questions, feel free to write them into the comments, and we'll do our best to answer them. And then we can talk about some of the strange things that we've encountered throughout our lives. So Justin, tell us a little bit about some things you've encountered.
So I got an option for you. I really only have two really good ones.
Okay.
I haven't, so you can have my shadow person story first or my Bigfoot encounter.
We'll do the Bigfoot one first.
Okay. So I'm just going to say the best telling of this story is on Eric's show, our buddy Eric, Uncomfortable. So I'm going to kind of shorten it up because it's over 2 years. And I only had one sighting in 2 years, but we had a lot of activity. So I'm from Ada, Ohio, everybody at home. I'm going to try not to say any names because we're live. So I'm from Ada, Ohio. We used to live in a big farmhouse out in the country. And we were one of like several people that owned a chunk of the big woods that was there. Our part, Northwest Ohio, is not very wooded. Anybody drove through here, it's mostly corn, hence our name. So this woods, we had 10 acres, no, we had 15 acres of like yard and pasture. We had horses, chickens, goats. And then we owned about another 15 acres of the woods, but this whole woods was probably 300-400 acres. So pretty big for our standard. I know everybody from Michigan and stuff like that, that's nothing. But for us, that's a lot. We also, for the story, it's important. Me and my mom showed horses. So my dad installed a giant floodlight in the yard so that we could work the horses at night. Anybody that's ever been around horses, they overheat super easy, but you want to work them longer. You basically want to work a horse till it's tired. So we'd have the floodlight so they wouldn't overheat, but we could still get them to that point where they were tired naturally. So year one, like I said, big farm, 5 horses at this point, probably about 40 goats, hundreds of chickens. I bred fancy chickens. So I know that's funny to people, but some of my birds, were upwards of $700-800 a bird.
So you raising them to sell or to eat?
No, so these were like your show dogs.
Oh, I got you. Yeah. Okay.
So like $700-800 a bird.
Yeah.
So these were raised for fancy show. That's pretty much what I did. I'm a 4-H advisor now, and that's what I help with. I'm very good at it. So we had my dad. We had so many animals. We'd pretty much buy feed grain by the pallet. So my dad made this giant long feed grain bin that would fit a pallet of each type of feed. Had a giant door. I was the only kid, so I was 16 when this started happening. I was the only kid that could flip up the grain door by myself. The other kids had to, it had to be two of them.
Mm-hmm.
So the first year we start having weird stuff happen on the property. Stuff getting moved. So that we had project cars. We had all, giant property full of. I have 3 biological siblings and I have 2 adopted siblings. So a lot of people doing their own. So stuff was getting moved. Like wood was being piled in corners of like a fence corner. Tires were being moved. Just weird little stuff. Buckets were always somewhere stupid, and we're starting to get at each other's throats about it because life was already, not easy. And so why are you making our life harder, to each of the siblings? And that started in May, and 4th of July weekend, this would be 2010, I believe. I worked at McDonald's. I was a closer. So, one more detail I forgot. Sorry, I've told the story enough. You think I'd have it memorized. Our driveway was almost a half mile long. You couldn't see any of our neighbors. We lived in this farm in the middle of the woods. So you'd have to drive all the way down this big long driveway. So I get off work at like 11:30, it's like July 3rd. So 4th of July weekend, it's Friday. My parents are camping at Indian Lake with the rest of my siblings. It's too late for me to go up. I've already missed the fireworks. So I'm just like, I'm going to go home. I'm sleeping. I'll go up to the lake in the morning. Our house was shaped like a U. So the kitchen and the living room were right next to each other, but there was like a courtyard in between, and the rest of the house is back here. Both the kitchen and the living room are almost all glass, so looking into the woods. So I come into the kitchen. We have 3 dogs. We have Sonny. He's a Labradoodle. He's about 120 pounds. We have Bailey. He's a Beagle mutt, about 40 pounds. And we have Clarice, which is a little Yorkie poo. So about, 5 pounds. So when I get home, I try to let them out. I'm like, okay, come on, guys, come out. Nobody would come into the kitchen. They were just standing in the doorway. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. But whatever, So I go and I walk. And as I'm walking through the house to go to the living room, the dogs are attached to me. And that's not too weird for Bailey and Clarice, the 2 littler ones. But Sonny, at this point, he was a coyote killer. He was a big, brawly dog. So it was kind of really weird that he was hugging up on me. We get to the living room. I lay down. Clarice and Bailey jump on me. And then the weirdest thing is Sonny tries to get on top of me. And he was never like that. He didn't try that. So I'm like, no. And so he laid right next to me on the couch. Way off on the other side of the woods, I hear boom, boom, boom. 4th of July weekend. It's fireworks. That's what my brain goes to. Everywhere there's booms. It's 4th of July. But none of the families, so there's about 5 other families lived around this woods. Nobody else had kids. We were the only family with kids. They were all, in their 60s and 70s. So I'm thinking it's, they have family over or something like that. About another 5 minutes passed, a little closer in the woods. Boom, boom, boom. I'm like, okay, whatever, they're playing in the woods. That's what we do. We're you're kids. It's what you do. And then about 5-10 minutes later, boom, 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 a little closer. Boom, 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 a little closer. Boom, 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 a little closer. Every about 5-minute intervals. It's almost like a guy's walking through the woods, from the other side of the woods to our house with a sledgehammer. And just every once in a while hitting a tree 3 times. And I'm like, okay. So I called my buddy Nick. He lived down the road. He didn't live in our woods, but he lived down the road. But he'd play in there. I'm like, hey, are you in the woods? He's like, no, we're in Pennsylvania. I'm like, okay, well, somebody's in the woods, just screwing around. So at this point, the dogs are visibly freaked out. I'm starting to get freaked out because it's getting closer and closer. Keep in mind, the room next to me is where the gun cabinet is. But I'm too scared to get up at this point because I'm in a glass room. I don't want whoever's out there to see where I am. If I stand up, I'm laying down flat on the couch so nobody can see me. If I stand up, you're going to be able to pick out where I am in the silhouette.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom on the side of our barn. Horses just freak out, take off. You just hear them whinnying and going freaking nuts. The goats get out of the barn. Everything just busts out. The horse actually had to kick to get out, and they let everything else out. And I'm petrified. The dogs, what really freaked me out is Sonny wasn't barking. And he had protected my mom from somebody that tried to hurt my mom once. He is not this is not a scaredy cat dog. So it's freaking me out because he's not doing anything. He's like looking for me to protect him. And I'm 16. I weighed probably 110 pounds. And I'm freaking out. Horses are going nuts. Then there's my brother had a project car. Boom, boom, boom. It's 30 foot away. And I'm just freaking out. I'm like, I don't know who's out there, but they're here. And that very second, almost right after it stopped, my aunt and uncle were staying with us at the time. They come down in the convertible, blaring music, whatever it is, takes off. I go outside. I'm bawling. They grab me and the dogs. We go stay at the house I'm in now. This is my grandparents' house. So we come here. The next day, our neighbor is retired military police, retired SWAT, and retired police. He came out, and it was only me, him, and Dad. And he came out, and he's like, well, it was a guy with a sledgehammer, and he hit everything 4 times. And I'm like, no, he only hit 3 times. Every time, it was only 1, 2, 3. It wasn't 4. He's like, no, it's 4. And then Dad's like, why do you think it's a sledgehammer? Because it's 8.5 foot off the ground. The only way a guy could reach that is having, a 3 foot hammer,
Mm-hmm.
And the reason he thought it was 4 is because right next to each other, there was 4 indents. Almost like there were knuckles.
Uh-huh.
And I argued with him for a minute and I stopped because I'm just like, well, at this point, we're sure it's a guy. The Porsche had the same thing. I got a picture of the Porsche I got to find with it having the 4 indents. Clear at this point, we didn't know anything about Bigfoot. I was like training. I was a biologist for a while, and that's what I knew I wanted to do. Biologists don't believe in Bigfoot, or that's what I thought at the time. So it's just nonsense. So we thought it was a guy, and I'm just like, I must have misheard something because I was so scared. So the rest of that summer, just more little stuff. The grain bin, that big door on the grain bin, kept getting left open, and just little stuff going around. So fast forward, and that kind of stops in October of 2010 at this point. In 2011, about May, it all starts up again. But this time, the stacks of stuff are getting bigger, like car hoods, tires, 2x4s. And they're big, they're tall stacks. So we're 100% sure this is a guy coming on our property that is screwing with us. And the grain bin keeps we're missing all kinds of horse grain. Have you ever been around horse grain feed?
Mm-hmm.
For everybody at home, it's just molasses. If me and you eat it, it tastes sweet.
Mm-hmm.
It's just free sugar. So we end up, and then I start missing my expensive chickens. So that's just not going to work. Cheap chickens, a raccoon, a fox, you lose birds on a farm. You will always lose birds to a predator on a farm. It's just how it works. But I start losing expensive chickens. So the thing with the expensive chicken coop is the fence was electrified. And the only way you could get into it was about a 60-pound door that had a latch on it. And they went to the nest box and you could pick up the chickens. These are all worked with a lot. So they wouldn't, if you walked up to them, they wouldn't run away from you. They just sit there and let you pick them up because that's what, they're showbirds.
Mm-hmm.
But I start missing those. So we go to the Amish and we buy a red heeler dog. Everybody at home, I don't know if you know what a red heeler is. They are the meanest SOBs on the planet, but they're really good for farms because they learn what animals are supposed to be there, what animals aren't supposed to be there, and they walk the perimeter pretty much all night. So we had this dog for 2 months. It had killed raccoons, it had killed coyotes, it had killed foxes, it had killed possums. One day she came up and me and my mom had seen her and she was covered in blood. And we thought she was I'm like, the dog's bleeding. Couldn't find a scratch on her. Later on, we found 3 dead coyotes. This thing was just a monster.
Damn.
So what she would do at night, though, around the perimeter, she wouldn't go in the woods, but she'd go right around the perimeter. We had that giant pasture in the middle of the woods. She'd pretty much just walk that triangle all night.
Yeah.
But she would tree something on that edge, and something went up in the tree, and she'd bark and bark and bark all night till you went and knocked it down for her. So we got pretty used to that at this point. We've had about 2 months of nothing weird happening. So we kind of, got back into ease. Well, one thing I did leave out earlier, me and my mom, like I said, we rode horses and stuff like that. So we had that big searchlight, but we also had giant trails cut into the forest to ride horses, and my brothers do four-wheelers. So there'd be these voids of no trees, but pretty much the rest of the woods was like a wall of tree, and then there'd be like a random hole in it. So Lucy starts barking one night. That's the red dealer. I didn't understand her name, I guess. Lucy starts barking one night, and we're like, okay, she's got some tree. My brother, Luke, clips something, just knock. We assume it's a possum, knock it out of the tree so she can kill it because she won't shut up till she gets to her kill. We get down, we see Lucy, and she's just standing there. So we can see her in the light. There's that big floodlights, but it's facing into the yard, not into the woods. So you get that kind of effect where you can't see into the woods because of the light. So she's standing in front of one of the four-wheeler trails, just standing up, staring and barking. And me and Luke get probably about 30 feet away from Lucy, and we see it. These giant chartreuse eyes just staring right down at her, blinking real slow. 1, 2. Third blink, it's staring right at me and Luke. And we're shaking, and I'm like, don't turn around, just walk backwards. That lasted for probably about 10 feet. We came in the house, we were crying. I'm 17 at this point, Luke's 15. We're just bawling. And Lucy's still standing there, didn't move. So Dad gets a shotgun. He is 100% sure this is the guy. He's 100% sure it's a man, and he's been screwing with us this whole time. He's just an awful human. So Lucy, he walks down. Me and Luke stand on the patio. Dad walks down with the loaded shotgun, and he stands in front of the four-wheeler trail. And Lucy's still standing there, just barking, looking at the same spot. The thing's not there, so I did miss. We could see the outline of it. No neck, just that big linebacker, probably 7.5 foot tall. Just a monster of a shadow, or a silhouette, I guess. So Dad's like, you mother effer, you come out here right now. You've scared my kids. You've tortured us for 2 years now. We're done. Come out. I'm going to start shooting in the woods. And he did, just the count of 3 thing. Obviously, nobody comes out. So Dad points to the top of the tree canopy. So he's not aiming into the woods. He's aiming at the top of the trees. And he shoots. And then all hell broke loose. He just sounds like a bison is ripping through the woods. Just Dad kind of falls backwards. Lucy takes off. Dad runs up to the house, and he gets me, my brother, and my mom. He leaves all my little siblings in the living room, and he's just like, we're going to go to your grandma's. That's not a man. That's all he would say. He's like, I don't know what that is. That's not a man. And we left, and later that year, we actually ended up leaving the property. My mom got cancer, so we just couldn't keep up with the farm and so we ended up just getting rid of the farm and moving here. So we did. I don't know if the activity actually stopped. But the weird thing is, I believe it's the BFRO. Hardin County is the county I live in. There's really no Bigfoot sightings before or after. But that year was like 5 sightings. And I have one guy on my show, Greg, the Greg episode. He's seen it 2011, about 2 miles from where I seen it. Same year. So that's my one and only Sasquatch sighting encounter. Well, it's a long encounter, 1 sighting. I really think that dog was about 2 seconds from not being a dog anymore. Because she was stopping him from getting into the barn, getting all that grain and everything.
So when she took off, did she take off after it, or did she run away?
She ran with Dad.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of think it was kind of 2 things. I don't really think she wasn't scared of nothing. I think once it went back into the woods, it wasn't a threat anymore. Okay,
that makes sense.
Because that's just kind of the dog she was. Once it was off her turf, it's done. She never chased things into the woods. It was only things that were out.
Yeah. Are pretty dang close.
Yeah, it's on that line,
Now, did you ever walk around out in those woods during the day?
All the time. We were pretty much Sorry.
You never saw anything weird out there?
So here's the thing. I'll tell you this. No, we weren't looking for anything though.
Yeah.
But here's the weird thing about it. Hindsight's 2020. We would coon hunt at night. Never on our own property. And we never discussed why. None of us, none of our siblings, none of our friends. We'd all just never bring it up. Like we all kind of, I wouldn't be in that woods at night, and I could never explain why. And I kind of wonder if it was just subconsciously that. And we drive 20, 30 minutes to coon hunt at night. We had plenty of coons. And that's just one thing that hindsight, nobody in our family go out there at night.
Well, was that before you saw it or after?
Before.
Before.
Yeah.
So kind of something was telling you, I guess, subconsciously something wasn't right. So y'all just inadvertently just ended up hunting in other places.
And I think that's what was happening.
That makes sense.
We would never, and we didn't talk about Bigfoot for like 2 years after that. And it was, how goofy the show is, but finding Bigfoot and mountain monsters. You say they're entertaining. That's all I'll say. But that opened us up to it. Now we're like, oh, other people see this. Sorry, I got an Amber Alert.
Whatever happened to that property?
We just got rid of it. My mom, like I said, she was very sick. She had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I don't know if anybody at home has anybody that's gone through it or if they've gone through it. My mom survived. She's in remission.
Oh, awesome.
Bless the Lord. But it's pretty much a 50-50 shot with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Uh-huh.
It's not a cancer that has a great success rate. So we just sold it, got rid of it immediately. Just like we cannot deal with anything. We got to focus on this.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, I can understand that.
But yeah, my shadow person story, I will give you an update on that property though.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I was about to ask if you've heard anything from the new owners or anything like that.
Yeah, and that deals with the more. So, you want me to go into that, or do you want to?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So,
If I have any questions about the previous one, we can go back.
All right, sounds good. I'll keep rolling then. I like to talk.
Yep. Yeah, go for it.
So, the end of 2011, that same year with the Bigfoot sighting, we were still there for like another 5 months, but we were there, after the Bigfoot sighting. So we were there for most of 2011. Half of that house was built. Half the house was given to us by a farmer that lives around the corner. So we picked it up off the foundation, moved it. The weird thing with this house is it's very, very old and supposedly was abandoned for 30 years. We start going in to get it ready to move and stuff. So this is way, way before any of the sightings. We haven't moved the house to where we lived in it.
Yeah.
There was not one mouse turd, not one rat turd, not one raccoon turd. Nothing.
What? And this was out in the country, or?
Yeah. I don't care how clean you keep your house, you're going to have a field mouse in there.
Yeah, especially out in the country.
So we start going into this, and we had to take out a couple walls. Knock down one wall. It's nothing but shed snakeskins inside. Hundreds. And my dad starts handing them to me, and I'm like, oh, this is a diamondback rattler. And in our area of Ohio, they've been excavated for about 180 years. So they've been gone for a while.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no, Dad, this is like I said, I was specifically going to school to be a herpetologist, reptiles and amphibians. That's what I wanted to do. I'm like, this is a diamondback rattler. You can still see the pattern. He's like, I can't be. There ain't no rattlers around here. So he goes up to we have a college in our town, and there's actually a herpetologist here, and she confirms that, yeah, it's a diamondback rattler. So Dad's like, he looks it up and he's like, okay, they've been gone for 100 years. The house is only 120 years old. So there must be, there must have been one last one hanging out here for a while. And it must be dead for a long time because he's found everything from like a 2 foot to like a big 6 foot snake skin. We start picking the day we pick up the house. I remember I'd have been like 12 at this point, maybe 11. There was this big black guy that went down to finish out cutting all the stuff because the house is lifted and he's got to make sure it's completely free. He goes down there and there's the giant diamondback rattler just laying there alive, just looking at him. And he takes off. He's like, I ain't going back down there. Like, no, you got to finish your job. He's like, no, there's a rattler down there. They don't believe him. So he leaves. They fire him and he leaves. And it comes out. It just comes right at the basement steps. Slithers into the woods. Nobody ever tried to stop it or nothing. Giant one. I was a little kid, but I think it was like 7-8 foot long. Super giant old rattlesnake. I've caught them in Arkansas and they get probably that big.
Yeah.
But not in Ohio. So we moved the house, get it all situated. The day we moved, the week we moved it, get it on this new foundation on the property, we had the Bigfoot encounter. My dad's in the attic, and he's sticking his hand somewhere where you couldn't see what was in there. He was pulling out insulation because he had to run a wire. He grabbed a whole stack full of papers. And he started looking at it and showed me and my brother, Luke, none of my other siblings, they were all too young at this point. He shows us, and he's like, it's all for rituals. It's all for really bad stuff. It had weird signals and stuff on it. Ada has a big cult history behind it. So he's like, okay, it's one of those things. So he burned them. Weird thing is, that same week, a lady came that was related to the man that gave us the house. And she asked, did we find any weird papers? And my dad's like, no. We didn't find nothing. She's like, okay, if you do, let us know. It's our family documents. And he's like, okay, we'll do. And then Mike goes to me and Luke. He's like, remember that lady. That's pure evil. She needs those back. I think so anyways, that house has footsteps constantly. All the time. I heard footsteps. I came home. I was alone again, years later. I was alone again. And I'm in the living room, and there's a room right above it. And clear as day, somebody walks right across the top, like in that room above me. There's nobody home, supposed to be. So I'm petrified. Like I said, that same neighbor from the Bigfoot story, ex-MP, SWAT. I call his son, that's my best friend, and he's there in a second. Guns blazing. He's like, "Good, Justin, go sit in my car. I'm going to clear the house." And I go sit in his car, and he does, and he comes back out, and he's like, there's nobody in there. I looked everywhere. He's like, there's nowhere that anybody could be hiding. Are you sure you heard footsteps? I'm like, yes, I swear. He's like, okay, I'm going to take you to your grandma's. Took me here. And so other members of my family had that same stuff happen. But that's all the little stuff. Then the big one, so my room, I'm the oldest kid. My brother under me is 15. He's got muscular dystrophy. So at this point, he's been through dozens of surgeries, tough guy. He's the toughest person I know. He comes, it's like 11:30 at night. My job in the morning was to get everybody ready for school because both my parents worked. So I got to get all my little siblings showered and fed and then to school. He comes in my room like 11:30 at night. And he pokes me and he's like, hey, can I sleep in here tonight? And I'm like, no, you can't. I thought he wanted to sleep in my bed. I'm like, no, you can't sleep in my bed. It's just, it's a twin. And he's like, can I sleep on the floor? I'm like, sure. He has the biggest bed. He has the nice, he has the nicest bed in the whole thing. I'm like, yeah, you can sleep on the floor. I guess sidebar. At this point, I had at the bottom of the foot of my bed, I had a giant python. I had a bunch of lizards and fish. My python was super sweet. That's the only snake I've ever had my mom's help, will hold and feed and stuff. Her name was Fluffy, and she earned the name. So he lays down. I lay, and I always face the wall when I sleep. So I lay down, and he pokes me in the shoulder. And I'm like, Luke, quit it. I don't turn around or nothing. I'm like, Luke, quit it. We gotta go. I gotta get you guys up early and everything. About 5 minutes pass. He pokes me again. I'm like, Luke, seriously, stop. About another 5 minutes passes. You ever had your mom pinch the meat of your shoulder? He does that to me, and it freaking kills. I turn around, I'm like, Luke, and he's dead asleep, all the way across the room, and this thing is leaning over me. I don't know if you ever seen anything like this, but it's blacker than black. It's like a void of light. It's leaning over me, and it slowly rises up. The lizards and fish are going nuts, running all around, going crazy. Fluffy is reared up, smacking her face into the glass, striking at this thing. She actually had to take her to the vet. She broke every tooth in her head just from smashing her face in the glass so hard.
Oh, jeez.
And it just stands up and melts into one of the corners and goes down like it looks like it's going down an elevator. Just kind of like whoop down. So we run in my parents' room, and I'm 17, and I'm crying, saying I seen I didn't know how to explain it. An evil, like a shadow. And my dad just looks at me, doesn't say anything, doesn't ask any questions. And he's like, okay, we're leaving. And he grabs everybody, and that was pretty much the last time he ever stayed out there. So we get our pastor for the next day. We get our pastor, and we get a religious figure in our town. Her name's Carol. Carol's a very, very godly woman. I don't know whoever at home, what your religion is. I'm Christian. That's where I put my faith. She's a very, very godly woman. Her and our pastor start praying over the house. And she's like, yeah, I can feel evil. There's evil here. And she just walks to a random spot and touches it on the wall. She's like, Bill, you need to, that's my dad. She's like, Bill, you need to open this wall right here. Dad don't ask the question. He don't think nothing. Goes in there, gets a hammer, opens the wall. He pulls out about a 2-foot long knife with, for the handle, a smiling serpent. Like a snake with a full set of human teeth. And they keep praying, and every time she put her hand on the wall, he'd open it up, and they'd find coins at that point. And they went through that for hours, all kinds of holes. And every time she was right. She found a coin. She found something. And she left that day, and she never got it all out. But at that point, we had to leave. So fast forward, we got rid of that house, all the evil that was with it. And we politely warned the people that bought it. Hey, we don't know what your background is. Weird stuff happens here. And they're like, okay, yeah, sure. The guy was kind of an a-hole. Like I said, my mom was going through chemo at this point. And he was texting her like every other day, like, hey, you gotta stop having the people coming out here trashing this place. There's people out here trashing this place all the time. And she's like, did you catch anybody? And he's like, no. And she's like, that's not us, I promise. So one day he calls her. He's like, you guys gotta effing stop this. They're upstairs right now. I have them cornered. I got my gun out. If they're your kids, let me know. Otherwise I'm shooting them. And mom's like, nobody we know's in that house. Do whatever you gotta do. But she said, you're not gonna find anybody up there. Sure enough, he goes up there. He doesn't find anybody. He's like, all right. And then he sells it like 2 months after that. And that's the last time I heard anything from anybody.
Huh. So he was having stuff trashed on the property and activity inside the house.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Like we talked about off air, I don't know. I think the Bigfoot I seen was the flesh and blood variety. And I think the thing in the house was a guard dog for whatever they used to do in that house. Like I said, this town has a big history of bad occult practices. My great aunt was actually a victim of a human sacrifice here in town.
Really?
Yeah, it was my dad's cousin. They only found her tongue and her toe.
Oh, damn.
So this town, they used to have a lot of that. And I think that the relative of the guy that gave us the house, I don't think the guy knew anything. Because I think he cleaned it out first.
Yeah.
I think the relative was using this house that you couldn't see from anywhere for all these rituals. And whatever that thing is in that house was a guard dog.
That would make sense.
But that's all, speculation.
Yeah.
I think more of the Bigfoot and the thing was more of a coincidence than related. But
so the banging on the barn and stuff, that happened with the same house?
Yes, same property.
Same property, but was the house on that property at the time?
Yes.
So when did the Bigfoot activity start after you moved the house?
So we never lived out there without the house being there.
Oh, I got you. Okay. I was thinking y'all were out there. Okay.
Yes, it did. But, we weren't out there beforehand.
Yeah. Okay. I was thinking y'all were out there already and y'all moved the house out there and... Okay. Huh. That is strange. So why do you think all the banging, though? Do you think he didn't like y'all being there?
I think... So that was one night. It only happened once. And I think it was because it's 4th of July weekend. I think it was all perturbed. And I think it was just trying to take it out on something. I've heard so many stories. I've had people on the show about them acting like big toddlers and throwing these temper tantrums. And I don't know if he was harassing our dogs, because our dogs are freaked out, like before I got home. I don't know if he was harassing the house, like peeking in the windows and stuff like that, before we got there. But that night, everybody was outside their property. He was stuck in that woods. He couldn't leave. There's fireworks going off everywhere. Our part of the Ohio, fireworks constantly. So he was stuck in that woods. He couldn't go, so he couldn't go anywhere. Constant barrage of noises. We were the only quiet house. So, like I said, I was the only one home. I was watching TV. I just got off work. I was tired. So I don't know if it was that. Maybe he was mad and he was just kind of taking his temper out on maybe a house he didn't even know I was in. He may have been there a couple hours before and it was empty. We left most weekends to go to camping at the lake. So our property was pretty empty on the weekends. And this was a Friday night. So I don't know if an unlucky coincidence for that in particular encounter. Excuse me, sorry. But it was always in the set of threes. And he punched the barn, freaked out the horses, and he freaked out the goats. He never messed with the goats or the horses. So to me, it just seems like a temper tantrum thing. Because he was just mad and scaring all the animals.
Upset about all the fireworks, yeah. Huh. I wonder if it was one of those things, like you said, you're usually gone during the weekends. It's like one of those oh shit moments, like somebody's here.
Yeah. And it could, who knows? It could be a dozen things.
Yeah.
That's the only time we ever had that happen. The time I only had it happen. My uncle, so a little side story for that, in that first year we had stuff, he was living with us. Him and his kids were also living with us. And he liked to listen to baseball. We are not a sports family. So there was not a TV in that house that would let him play a baseball game. So he would take his convertible, and like I said, we had a big long driveway, and he'd park at a halfway spot and turn the baseball game on the radio and sit down there in his car and enjoy a couple drinks on our property.
Yeah.
One time, and he told me this after I started doing the show. I never knew this. He had a guy run up behind him, slap the trunk of his car super hard while he was in it, and keep running. And he just said, he only assumes this guy, but he's like, I just a big blur that ran past, slapped the trunk, the whole car jumped and kept running. And he just gunned it. He just took off. And he's like, after we started sharing our stories years later, okay, that was a Bigfoot. He's like, that's what it was. He's like, I must have been mad that I was down there playing the baseball game. So he decided to take it out on me.
Uh-huh.
And looking back, I don't think any of the kids were ever in danger. That dog, I do think was about 2 seconds away from not being a dog. So my working theory behind it is all of our famous Bigfoots are that 7.5 to 8 foot tall guys. Momo, Minerva Monster, the ones that get in the trash, that cause trouble. And they always just seem like the big hulky ones. I kind of think he was a juvenile male. That's why I keep calling him he. He was a juvenile male that I think they only really migrate through our part of Ohio. They don't hang out very long. There's not a lot here for them. And he's like, well, this woods has chickens. It's got feed. It's got everything. And I got cover. Why do I need to leave, Mom and Dad? Why do I got to walk all the way down to Cincinnati? I don't want to do that. I'm going to stay here.
Yeah.
And he did for 2 years. And then when he got shot at, quote unquote, by my dad, I think that was enough for him. Like, oh, Mom and Dad are right. These guys are dangerous.
That's interesting.
That's my working theory behind it. Because after that, so the Bigfoot stuff outside stopped for us after that. We were there for like another 5 months. Didn't have one Bigfoot thing happen. So
you think that gunshot scared it?
I think that he realized it. I think they talked to each other, if you can't tell. But I think he realized that Mom and Dad wasn't joking around, that humans are dangerous. Because he was just looking at us kids. He didn't take off. He didn't do anything. But he's like, why do I got to be, in my head, he's like, why do I got to be scared of these little hairless things? I'm 7-8 foot tall. I'm 700 pounds. There's nothing in this country that can bug me. And then Dad walked down there, yelled in his face because he was only like 10 foot away from Dad, just in the pitch black. Yelled in his face and then shot in the air, and that scared the hell out of him. In my head, that's what happened. He just bolted, and then he left, or he started maybe doing the normal thing that they do through our area.
Migrating through, yeah,
or not stealing chickens.
Yeah.
If he had never stole those fancy chickens, he'd have never had a problem.
Yeah. Well, of course, he probably didn't know better.
No. Oh, they were the easiest ones to get if you're a person, or person-like attributes.
Yeah.
If you're a fox or something, they're hard because everything's electrified.
Yeah. You'd find out hard way, yeah.
Yeah.
So Lucy seemed to keep him at bay.
For a little bit.
For a little while.
And I think that's when he was done. I think he was like, I'm getting a horse grain tonight. I really think, how many stories have you heard where it doesn't ever, they leave people alone pretty good.
Yeah.
But dogs normally get the short end of the stick for their attitudes.
Yeah, they don't seem to like that at all.
Because I think they don't like how easily they get their cover blown when a dog's around.
Yeah.
Or for Lucy's case, she was the only thing stopping him from coming to the yard and eating all the horse grain. I really think that's what he wanted, mostly, because it's a super easy food source. It's super high in sugars. It's, tastes good. It's better than eating just, a lot of bugs to get the same amount of protein.
Yeah.
So those are kind of my two big ones.
It's like sugar cane over pine cones, yeah.
Right. Which one would you rather eat?
Sugar cane.
Yeah. I can eat a pine cone, but I don't want to eat a pine cone.
No, I don't. It won't taste as good as the sugar cane.
No.
It might be equal in nutrition, but.
So, like I said, the guy that came on our show, and I didn't know this. I've known this guy because his name's Greg. He actually that was our guest that came to Bigfoot and Brews that won the tickets.
Oh, okay.
I never knew this about Greg. No idea. Known him my whole life. Super close to our family. And I start doing the show, and he hears my encounter. And he's like, he texts my dad. He's like, hey, give me Justin's number. He gets my number. He's like, hey, what year was that? And I told him what year. And he comes on the show and shares his encounter. You gotta listen to that episode. I'll send you the thing because
Yeah, send it to me.
An amazing. He was like 2 foot from it. He could have touched it. He thought it was a cow in a ditch.
Did it leave a mark on the car?
For Greg's or my uncle's?
Your uncle's.
The one that slapped the trunk?
Yes.
Yeah, it did. Well, that car had seen better days, so it didn't look like a hand or nothing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you could see a dent. It was definitely, it was hit with some force because he said he was sitting there and the whole car jumped.
Wow.
So I can slap a car pretty hard, but I don't think I can make it jump.
No.
Not from a slap.
Yeah. Jumping on it would probably barely move.
And it just, other people, it was weird because, like, we had friends. Like I said, the coon hunt thing has always stuck with me. Because we had friends that go coon hunt. Nobody ever suggested our own property. And we had hundreds of coons. We trapped coons on our property.
How, did you have any neighbors?
So, like I said, they were all older couples.
Okay.
And the one was not friendly, like our direct neighbor. So we couldn't, so it's kind of hard to explain. We couldn't see any of our neighbors. We just knew they were over that way. But the one that ended up shooting at us when we were little kids, because he thought we were, kids, and we got behind his property and he was shooting at us. But we were still technically on our property. It's just how the property lines were shaped. It was weird.
Yeah.
And so we never got along with him after that, you know, for reasons. Because he was not the friendliest person. But I knew a couple of the others. Nobody was outside. Nobody had a lot of other animals. Like, there was a couple other couples that had animals and stuff. But, you know, when you're in your 60s, 70s, and 80s, as an old farm couple, once it's, 7 o'clock, you're probably in bed.
Yeah.
So I never heard anything about that. But like I said, all the other sightings were close to that area. So we lived on the Hardin Allen County lines. And that's where all those sightings are reported for our little area.
Were they around the same time as yours?
Yeah, the same 2 year, or the same 2011 was the big one.
And what kind of sightings were they? Were they like road crossings or?
So 2 of them were across the road, like a handful of them. So we have these farm ditches. So a farm ditch, for anybody at home that don't know, for our part of Ohio, they sometimes are 9-10 foot deep. They're just gouges to make sure the farms drain efficiently.
Yeah.
So half the sightings for that year were people crossing these late at night, getting off work, and seeing a guy laying in them, hugging the bank, like a guy like laying against the bank. And so people thought it was a guy that got hit. So they start backing up, and they look down, and there's 3 different sightings with almost the same MO. And they look down, and it's like 8 foot tall, and it's covered in hair. Okay, that's not a guy, and then they take off. So yeah.
And that those sightings, how far were they from your property?
90% of them are less than 2 miles.
Okay, so it was within the general area. Do you think it might have been the same one, or do you think it might have been a family of them?
I think all the ones that were getting caught was the same guy. I think he was personally, I think he was reckless.
Yeah, he don't seem to be too good at the hiding thing.
I don't think he was, because I fully believe we have not a lot of them. I do think we have a good number of them move through our part of Ohio. And they never get caught. Our part of Ohio really sucks on sightings. Because we're sparse. They know they got to be sneaky to get through us. And I think he just was like, life's a lot easier when I don't pay attention, like if I don't have to do all that. And then you get shot at, and then like, okay, I guess Mom and Dad are right. I got to walk now to Cincinnati, and I got to walk back to Michigan.
Yeah.
But so that is all the big England encounters over here.
That's all the big ones.
Yeah, I've had little stuff, but nothing real like those.
Nothing.
I can point at and say that's not normal or that's not something else.
just that's strange, but that could be something else kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you've had them. Where
Yeah.
mentally, you feel like you know what it is, but it could be explained away by something else.
You're just not going to sit there and be like, that's Bigfoot.
Right. Oh
Everything's Bigfoot. Yeah.
We love those shows or those YouTube videos where every two sticks that touch in the woods are Bigfoot.
I think that's why I like kind of going by myself, because there's always that one person out of the group that's everything's Bigfoot, and it just drives me nuts.
Yeah, everything's not Bigfoot. If they were that common, fine were that common, we'd have one in a cage.
You could fart and it'd be Bigfoot.
So, I love Bobo, but there's a meme out there about that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Where it's a duck quacking, and he's like, "That's Sasquatch."
Yeah.
But that's just a TV show. Everybody, it's dramatized. It's
Hollywooded up a bit.
Yeah, I really think he was a juvenile man. I think a lot of our Bigfoot sightings, like the regional, or not, how do I put that? The local constant sightings. So like Minerva Monster, Momo, Big Muddy Monster, where it's just a short period of time with crazy amount of activity and almost recklessness. You see this kind of same thing with them just being flat out reckless, where they're not hiding. They're throwing stuff at kids. They're flipping over trash cans. They're killing dogs.
It does seem to be the younger ones too.
I think it is. I think it's especially so. If we look at other animals, the juvenile males, once they hit maturity or beginnings of maturity, a lot of times they'll get pushed away, maybe not kicked all the way out of the troop or the clan or the family unit, but they'll start being pushed away. So that's why they're always roided out looking. The one I seen just didn't have a neck. It went from head to shoulders.
Yeah.
When you look at Patty, and Patty wasn't like that. Patty, was more barrel shaped. She was, so you don't really see that with what I believe are females. You don't really see that a whole lot of the time with the females causing trouble. And it's almost always at 7.5 to 8 foot tall range. You don't see a 9-footer in downtown Gatlinburg throwing a trash can.
No, it's almost like that video of the loggers of that one way back on the tree line throwing the log. I can see a juvenile doing that. The adults seem to know better. Yeah, stay back.
They've learned.
Yes.
People are bad.
Probably the hard way. Yeah.
If you hurt a person or it causes too much attention, you're going to get hundreds, if not thousands, of people out here.
More come, yeah.
Yeah. It's just easier to let them walk through.
It's like poking a beehive.
We say on the show all the time we're ants. One person is not hard to kill when you're a Sasquatch.
Yeah.
The problem is you're not going to have to deal with one person.
No.
Once you kill one, 10 come looking. Once 10 come looking, 100 come looking.
Like ants carrying guns. That's a big difference.
Ants with nukes.
Yeah, exactly. Big difference.
But yeah. That's why I don't mess with the paranormal side of stuff.
Yeah, I try not to mess with that kind of thing too. I mean, if I come across it, then I come across it, but...
Right. But I don't go looking. Like, we have friends that go ghost hunting and stuff like that. I'm like, I never go. I never once gone. And they're like, oh, you just don't believe in it. I'm like, no, that's the problem, is I believe in it.
I know what can happen.
Right. I don't want to bring anything home.
No.
You know what I love about this house that I'm in right now? I have personally known everyone that's died in it.
Okay.
It's my great-grandfather built it, and I knew him. He died here. My great-grandmother died here. My grandpa died here. And they all love me. So it's not like there's any bad juju hanging out.
Yeah.
everybody died peacefully and well, not happily, but
Nobody doing any rituals or anything
right?
weird like. Yeah.
Yeah,
Unlike that one house.
yeah. Now we're having an episode come out about the Ada cult soon. It's crazy, and we started doing the research, and it's crazy how blatantly obvious it is.
Yeah, that cultist stuff is not something to be.
Mm-mm.
You don't want to mess with that, especially even the cultists themselves. You want to stay away from.
Mm-hmm.
There's something not right.
Once you start dealing in that stuff, we talk about it, where it's not free. You're
Comes
paying
at a
the
price.
even if you don't. Yeah, even if you don't realize what you're paying or who's paying the bill. There's always a bill, and it's always horrible.
Yep. It is. The devil ain't nice.
No,
there's nothing nice about it.
The house always wins when you deal with that stuff. Did you have any questions from any listeners or anything?
No, not any. If anybody has any, they're welcome to comment. It's been kind of quiet tonight. I usually at least have 2 or 3. I figured I'd have a bunch. But we had about 5 people watching there for a little while.
Awesome.
Now it looks like it's just 3.
Ask us questions, guys.
Yeah. Anything. Well, I say anything, but be realistic.
Don't ask for my social security number.
Yeah. Or the last 3 digits of my credit card. Yeah.
We had somebody do that on a
really?
live stream. Just joking around because I said that line. Ask us anything. We don't care. What's your SS number? Okay, not that one.
Yeah, not that.
But I love doing these. I love doing live things because of questions and stuff like that. So
yeah, I do too.
Ask us questions. My live stream starts in 10 hours.
Oh, the what do you call it? The coffee.
Yep, Cryptids and coffee.
Cryptids and coffee. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes I pop in every once in a while.
Yeah, there's a lot of people pop in and don't ever see anything, so it's like I never know who's here.
Yeah, I wish it told you who was watching. It'd be nice.
I know.
Then you can be like, hey, I know so and so's watching. You can ask a question,
Yeah, pick on them directly.
Yeah.
So, like we were talking about before we started recording, where I'm bringing back the Fae folk.
Oh yeah.
That it seems to be almost, to me personally, it's all personal opinion. There's kind of these 2 sets of Bigfoot, where you have the more flesh and blood things, like they're us or they're animals, wherever you want to put them on the family tree. But if you shoot that thing, you can kill it. In my opinion.
If it bleeds, yeah.
And then you have these more supernatural Bigfoot, the red glowing eyes, not eyes shine, the red glow, the orbs, the disappearing, the reappearing kind of things. Mm-hmm. And we were talking off air that Fae folk of American legend and Fae folk of European legend kind of do that. And what they do is they're kind of spirit / interdimensional things.
Yes.
Like energy based. And they will put on whatever face that you want them to have. So they are really good at looking like whatever you want them to look like. And a lot of us, when we go out, we're looking for Bigfoot. Mm-hmm. Or even if you're not one of us, you're just camp dad, you just told a story about Bigfoot, before you go camping. And then you see this glowing red-eyed, hairy monster because that's what you put out there. And they just reflect it back. I really think there's something to that because there's so many stories, and I had struggled with it for a long time, of Bigfoot having natural instinct, natural abilities, them eating, them doing stuff. And then you have other
Well,
stories like you've told us with the orbs.
yeah, I saw a lot of that in Florida. That was real strange. A lot of that following some strange Bigfoot related stuff, noises. That was really strange. I don't want to. You got me thinking about something here. I gotta remember the name. I'm gonna have to. Of taking on an image.
You're thinking of a tulpa?
Tulpa, thank you. Yes, a tulpa. It's you hear the stories of like Buddhist monks. If they're able to focus on something long enough, they can make it reality, kind of thing.
Yes.
Almost like golems. That's where I was talking about earlier. Golems, clay. Supposedly, those they were able to bring those to life. It makes me think. When an area gets so much attention, how do we know that's not a tulpa? Just just drawing a bunch of energy to one location, and you start getting strange stuff, just like the whole Slender Man thing. Yeah, you start something like that on the internet, you're playing with fire there now. It's spreading like fire.
It got a life of its own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you start hearing stories of people actually having encounters of weird stuff like that.
I mean, a girl killed another girl over it.
Yep. Yep, there's definitely something weird about it from the very beginning.
I do think the tulpa idea, I think it was a good idea. That I think it's perfect. I think you said it perfectly. And that doesn't just go with Bigfoot, poltergeist, You're putting the energy out there.
Yeah.
And the universe just does something with it.
And when you go out and in large groups, people are wanting something to happen that's Bigfoot related, and stuff actually starts happening. Is that actually Bigfoot, or is that tulpa related?
Right.
Energy you're being thrown.
I can see it, and it fits in the ghost world. It fits in the UFO world.
Yes, it fits nicely in just about any kind of situation. Except when you start getting into West Virginia, you start seeing like the Dover Demon and stuff like that. That's not tulpa related stuff. So they actually did see something weird.
About that thing.
No, not beforehand. No.
Yeah.
And not too many sightings since then.
No, it was just a one-off.
So that that kind of stuff, like the Patterson film. I don't, I feel like that's real.
Yeah. That's our episode that came out today, was the Patterson Gimlin film.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we went through the FBI analysis of it.
Oh, okay.
Here's the cool thing, so I'll ruin it. I'll ruin it for everybody at home, so you don't even have to listen to it. There's something I never noticed about the Patterson Gimlin film that one guy pointed out. So if it was really, let's say it is the best costume ever from that era, and we're talking, tons and tons of money, impossible to do. But let's say
even ahead of Hollywood at the time.
Right, yeah. Let's say they did it though. One thing they didn't have was an animatronic or a puppeteering for the hands. Patty's thumb fully flexes and extends. I never noticed it before. So her right hand, next time you watch it, look everybody, her thumb, she's walking, does that. You couldn't do that at that time. You couldn't make something that was a wearable costume to do that. And I've always believed it's real. But I've seen that. I can believe doubt in it too,
Yeah, I can see doubt, but I'm seeing more proof than doubt in the video itself.
We went through it. We did 2 hours on it, just about all this analysis and stuff like that. And I'll tell you what, the cool thing about it is that all the for it proof
Uh huh.
is super well done, super thought out. There's time marks. We go through all that. All of the against it stuff is super lacking. It's like, hey, I'm film, animatronic specialist X, and it's not real. No backing, no nothing, no analyst. And all the ones that are forwarded are like, yeah, timestamp 1.37.8. You can see Patty's thumb flex at 2, point. You can see the eye. It's like there's so much for it.
The one that impresses me is being able to see the muscles move under the
flex
under the hair. Yeah,
it's
I don't know a suit that can do that.
no. I mean today, sure, we can do that.
Well, I can't even think of one that can do that now.
So we were at Crypticon last year, and they had a dog man that had muscles under the flesh or under the skin.
Oh, did it? Okay. Yeah, I haven't come across anything like that yet, but that'd be pretty neat to see.
But that's 60 years, 50 years later.
Yeah.
They didn't have that then. You couldn't do that.
No.
Patty's real, guys. You heard it here first.
Yep. Yeah, Patty is definitely real.
You get any questions yet?
No, it seems pretty quiet tonight.
I'm sorry, I ruined the show.
Oh, no, you're fine. I don't have a lot of followers on my YouTube channel just yet. I'm hoping to get more, but I'm working on it.
Yeah. We'll make sure we start all the pages. Yep.
But for those of you who didn't know, we did lose a really, really good researcher, Bigfooter out there, Kerry Arnold. He was a good friend. A really good guy, a great singer. I remember him showing me his videos of him playing piano and singing. I always told him he was a great singer. He never believed me. Being around the music industry, my father's a professional fiddle player, so I grew up around that. And I kept telling him, I was like, he was really good. But our prayers are with his family.
Yes, they are. Taken too soon.
Yes. We're praying for you guys.
Yes, we are.
Anyways,
so I don't mean to laugh. It just.
Yeah, I don't mean to bring the mood down, but
no, it is something that he is, that needs to be said.
Yeah. And I know there's a lot of people that are doing it too, but I haven't said much on the subject yet, and it has been weighing on me a bit because I did know him personally.
I never got the opportunity.
And just talking to him but a week before, it really messes with you. So, and that's probably nothing compared to how his family's feeling right now, though.
Hey.
And I feel for him, and I hope his friends that I know Mark Zasky was a real good friend, and I know they're probably really feeling it because they knew him much longer than I did. But anyways, yeah, we should do this again for sure.
We definitely will. Next time you're on our show, though.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
I want some orb stories.
Okay, I got a few. They're not fantastic, but they're weird.
It's always weird. I don't know what they are. They're just weird.
I don't either. And they're not fireflies. You try to tell me it's a firefly, I'll slap you. Because I know what a firefly looks like. There was no firefly.
I fully believe it. It's just some people's. I'm always on this. Sorry, now I start talking again.
No, you're fine.
But I'm always on the side of reasonable explanations until they're not reasonable. Because some of the explanations for stuff like that is just ridiculous. Like it's a firefly. Like, no, it's not a firefly.
No.
Yeah, I believe it. It's not a firefly.
You show me a firefly that can move at the speed I saw some of these things move, then maybe, but
they can't have a constant glow.
No.
People don't get that. Is they have to.
They can't. There's none of that either.
Right. No.
You know,
Yeah.
it's always just pulsating.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I saw a lot of weird stuff like that in the glades. Yeah, you were talking about a picture from one of the vehicles on your property. I'd like to see that on the
If I
old
can
property.
find it, I will.
Yeah, I'd really like to see that.
Yep, that's that knuckle. What I think are knuckle marks.
Yeah.
8 inches wide.
Hmm.
Big hand. A lot bigger than mine.
Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah, I'd be very interested in seeing that.
Sounds good.
Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun. Kind of laid back.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I like to do my shows. There's no sitting at attention and reading the script. None of that.
You know, we're pretty laid back people over here too.
Yeah, that's how I like it. You don't like it, and you can move on.
Mm-hmm. Can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, we'll close the show out now. You guys have a good night.
Bye, guys.
You can find Cryptids of the Corn. Where can they find you at?
All the podcast apps. Just go find us. Type in Cryptids of the Corn, you'll find us.
Apple, I'm sure.
Yeah.
iTunes, all the fun stuff.
Yeah,
Spotify.
All the. If you're listening to.
You used to be able to find my podcast and all that, but I switched over to live shows. But you can find a lot of my old stuff on YouTube. But I do shows periodically, so check me out. Check in every so often. I try to schedule a week ahead. So everybody have a good night.
Bye, guys.